So yes, we've got breakfast. Feel free to have some of that. I might grab the presenter wand if you would. Thank you. So today we're going to be running a presentation that we ran about 3 months ago. It's scaling Atlassian in the enterprise, and it's basically around the new product offerings. It's around a little bit about what we do as a service offering to try and complement that product offering. Towards the end, if there's the interest and you have some time, what we'll be doing is taking questions, but also doing a little bit of a live Q&A session with regards to some of the products if you want to see them demoed. So for instance, a little bit about JIRA, or Portfolio, or Confluence. If you've got some questions, feel free to put your hand up. There should be time for that towards the end. So, this is the format that we're going to run with. We're going to perform some introductions of ourselves, take a quick poll of who we've got in the audience and maybe what you'd like to see, and we can tune the pitch accordingly. A bit about GLiNTECH, a bit about Atlassian, where they're situated in the marketplace and where they're heading. Some of their new product offering as it relates to the data center, which is effectively high availability and scalable solutions. The PremierSupport offering, technical account manager offering, and some training. So we'll get stuck into the training stuff towards the end, but just want to sort of let you know that GLiNTECH actually run the training on behalf of Atlassian in the Asia Pac region. Some of you may have already gone through that with us. We did, I think it was this month, we did JIRA in the Enterprise, which is basically an enterprise view of JIRA, how to put down governance, how to tool it up effectively, taking a lot of questions. That was a whole day workshop. We do webinars as well, how to educate some of the community on how they would want to use the product, the administrators as well. So this is all Atlassian's packaged training courses, and what we look to do is just basically service that course. And the last bit, of course, is Q&A, as I touched on. So, bit of an overview. A little bit about us before we get stuck right into it. Some of you already know us. You come to us as our customers. You might know us for one area, and we're a little bit more diversified than that. But right up the top, we've got 2 premium level accreditations. One is Atlassian Experts Platinum. The other one is Atlassian Experts Enterprise. And we had to jump through a number of hoops to get there. We've got to jump through more hoops to stay there. But what that kind of gives you is a sense that we're invested in that relationship with Atlassian. They're invested in the relationship with us, and for the most part, it's not a fly-by-night accreditation. We do need to hit certain targets, and we do need to be able to, demonstrate an ongoing relationship. And some of that stuff is going to entail case studies, where we might turn to some of our good customers, such as yourselves, and say, "Can you do a case study? Because we need one this year to maintain this accreditation." To give you an understanding as to what we go through, and what's involved in that. So we've got a couple other partnerships. We're Red Hat Advanced Business Partners, and our focus in that area is really in the DevOps space. PaaS is a particularly interesting area for us, as it complements the Atlassian toolset, as it also complements a DevOps and Agile mindset, which is what we've adopted as a company. On the far right there, you've got IBM, which is where we cut our teeth. Back in 2000, we were doing MQ-based integration, MQSI, if anyone knows what that is. And then we started to add more offerings to the consulting capability. So we went from doing integration stuff to writing up portals, mobile, BPM processes, doing identity and access management, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. We did a lot of solutioning around that. And in the middle there, you've got Access Agile and Scrum Alliance. Access Agile is a certified training authority that can deliver the certified Scrum Master courses. We offer their course through us, and effectively it's the same price that you'd get if you went through them. But what we do is we work strategically with those guys. They're very strong in that space to enable our customers on Scrum, and then we come in at the tooling level and make sure that it goes according to plan. So that's kind of a bit about how we interact with the broader community. It's all aligned to servicing IT basically. We do some line of business engagements, but generally speaking, our main customers are IT. The other areas that you see down the bottom there, it just give you an understanding of the breadth of our diversity. We do have affiliations with those, Docker and Puppet and so forth. So these are some of our customers. Some of you might be here today. We started off back in 2000 up until about 2008 in banking and finance. That was our core business, right up until GFC hit, and then we needed to diversify for very obvious reasons. The projects weren't getting funded, and we got into doing government, semi-government, manufacturing, and a bunch of other verticals. Okay. So a little bit about Atlassian. Atlassian is now currently servicing over 43,000 companies worldwide, so they've really graduated into a main player in this space. And with doing that, the top 100 companies, of those top 100 companies, 85 are using Atlassian products, and probably more. There's probably an instance of JIRA under someone's desk in some of the other 15. I wouldn't be surprised. They're a key player in the Magic Quadrant, top right-hand corner. What you will see in that breakdown, in the printout that you've got there, is that their strengths is that they've got excellent issue and tracking management. They're aligned with DevOps and Agile. In fact, they were on a quadrant, I think, since 2012, yep. And they've been skyrocketed to the far right because the Gartner guys changed their criteria. It used to be less aligned with DevOps and Agile. It used to be more traditional tooling. And now, since they've changed their criteria, guess what? They appear in the top right hand. Their weaknesses are really around their ability to enterprise sell. And there's good reason for that, because you can't buy a $100,000 piece of software on a credit card off the internet. You need to engage with the vendor, you need to have discussions, negotiations, you need to put a business case together, you need an advocate, you need POCs, all this sort of stuff. And the large enterprises are really good at doing that and committing resource to that. And we've had experience in doing that with IBM for many, many years. So what we do is we take that experience and now we do it for Atlassian as well. So we're basically the extension of Atlassian, their Salesforce, if that makes sense, because they don't actually have one, they use us. So have a read of that, it's an interesting write-up. Okay, the enterprise journey. Over to Jeff.
Thank you. So, Atlassian's tools. Most commonly, throughout their life cycle, they've started under someone's desk. Most commonly JIRA. It's in there, 10 users, 25 users maybe. As it grows, it becomes more and more mission critical. When it gets mission critical, it gets passed over to centralized IT. Suddenly, there's a whole stack of requirements around uptime, performance. And for 25 users, if it goes down for a couple of hours, no one cares. It's fine, I'll get back to it when it's there. You've got 5,000 users. What's the cost of those users for 2 hours? It really starts to add up. Even just slow responsiveness those slow actions will start to add up, and you start to lose a lot of productivity. In large organizations, you also have governance and compliance requirements. So having that centralized management and things like high availability, which might just be a requirement in your organization, become very important. Then you get customization. So I'm sure anyone who's been using the tools for a little while will be familiar with all the available add-ons you can have. The fact that you can modify these tools a fair bit, which is great, really powerful, but really sucks with growth. Really sucks to then try and upgrade beyond where you currently are. So Atlassian heard this, so they introduced some enterprise offerings. The first tier is Data Center. So Data Center is basically your high availability solution for JIRA, Confluence and Stash. And then they've introduced some services and support offerings. So as you can see there, it's PremierSupport, technical account management, and enterprise partners. So, Data Center.
Okay, Jeff made me read these bits out here. He doesn't like reading stuff out of the slide deck, but Atlassian's provided us with some nice boilerplate quotes, and it kind of sets the stage for the next bit that's to follow. Okay, so this one here is from a TAM customer, technical account manager customer. Horizontal scalability and high availability are the most important features that we are looking forward to from Stash Data Center. The obvious reason being that if you've got downtime with, let's say, 1,000 developers hanging off that one instance, then how much is that going to cost you? 1 hour of 1,000 people's salary, it adds up. So it's not hard to put that into perspective. The one thing I will say that I haven't touched on yet is Atlassian has turned a corner as a company. They're no longer just doing the single instance, sitting underneath someone's desk that's supporting a couple of hundred users. They're graduated into having this high availability solution, premium support offering, so that they can compete with the other names that you saw in that top right hand corner. And that's really the context that I'm trying to impress upon you guys today, that they've turned that corner, and they're you'll see it with what they're bringing out.
So just a show of hands, anyone here using or evaluating Data Center yet? Yep, great. Anyone else planning on evaluating, looking into it? A couple more at the back, great. Okay.
Just a quick question, does anyone know what plugin that's from?
Yeah, shout it out. Yeah.
You can shout it out, you get a...
Yeah, bingo.
Nice, okay, so...
That was the easiest prize you ever won.
That's a prize there. Thank you very much for that.
So Confluence Questions is an add-on for Confluence. Gives you a Stack Overflow style Q&A space so that people can upvote and downvote correct answers. Bit cleaner than forums. Helps get rid of a lot of the noise. So Atlassian now have 3 deployment options. In the past we had the cloud and the server. So cloud used to be called on-demand. Server is pretty much always called server or behind the firewall. And now there's Data Center. So cloud, Atlassian host, very limited extendability options, but it's always up to date. They always upgrade it for you. Downtimes, that kind of stuff, they take care of, not your problem. Server, that's your problem. But it does let you customize a lot more. You can start putting all your corporate branding on there, add some plugins integrated to other applications. And now we've got Data Center, which again is something that you would host in your data center. It's a multi-node setup, which we'll go through, and that basically gives us this high availability. So beyond high availability, we also start to get performance at scale. So with a current single instance of a server, if you have 1,000 users hitting it all at the same time, every single one is going to the same node. With Data Center, maybe that's split across 3 nodes, so you get 300 and something on each one. Help split that out. Nodes are also instantly addable. So if suddenly another 1,000 users come along, you can automate the adding of nodes to your cluster and just keep bringing them on to meet demand. So it is an active cluster, so meaning all nodes are currently live. There's no passive node in this setup. It helps to distribute the load and gives you that redundancy. It requires you to bring your own load balancer, which most organizations will have. Otherwise, Apache or HA proxy, there's a whole stack of easily set up, easy open source ones to set up if need be. Database, which ideally would be clustered and redundant in its own world, and shared storage, commonly NFS, but there are some proprietary ones out there that will do that as well. Yes?
Do you guys support the cross data center?
So at the moment, the kind of fuzzy requirements are a 15 millisecond response between each node. Now, if you've got a data center that handles that kind of speed, sure, it should just work. No need to worry about it. If it doesn't, I don't know. I would really like to set up a proof of concept and see what happens. When we start to get this drift and cluster panics and that kind of stuff. There is another feature that may help there, but it's no longer an active thing. So from the Atlassian testing labs, they found that they were able to increase their throughput of their applications, quite well just by adding more nodes. So here we can, there's no numbers on this, it's very kind of fuzzy graph, but number of concurrent browsers were at an events per second, you can see that just by adding 2 nodes, we suddenly had a much higher capacity. A little quote there. You'll get a soft copy of these slides anyway, so you can go and read all the
There's one
content.
hook for that. Soft copy of the slides will come when you perform when you write up a survey for us. So there's a one-page survey that should take about 30 seconds to fill out. 2 minutes if you give pause and proper thought to it. And the result of which is you get a soft copy of these slides.
So as I said, nodes can be added. So pricing is per user, not per node. So if you want 2 nodes, fine. If you want 50 nodes, fine. Of course, you've got your infrastructure costs for the nodes and what have you. So there are costs there. But basically, you add a node, a copy of the index gets taken from one of the other nodes, incremental update. As soon as it's ready, it's live. Way to go. Okay, new feature of Data Center within the last few months is disaster recovery automation. So this now lets you have offsite replication of your application within JIRA or Confluence, whichever tool you're using here. You have a schedule, and you can say every hour I want to incrementally update my DR. Every day, every week. Just depends on how much data you're willing to lose, can afford to lose in the business. So that replicates your nodes. They are in a passive state. Has the ability to do your databases and shared storage as well. Of course, you may have other tools to handle some of that, depending on your stack. From this point, it's a case of having your load balancer recognize that, hey, our primary data center has just been flooded. It's recently happened up in Newcastle. Or something gone terribly wrong. Automated switch, DNS, stand it up. We're talking 10-minute recoveries instead of hours or days. So also a nice way to build new test environments. So something that always comes up is, we need to do an upgrade. Let's build a new environment and then do this. Okay, there's now a magical button, build me a new DR site. Yeah, disconnect that. That's now my UAT environment. What's on the roadmap for this stack? Very good question. So something that everyone's going to ask is Geo Clustering. Right? At a certain point, can I have this across countries, states, all this kind of stuff outside that 15 milliseconds? Sorry, the text on here is just a picture. There's nothing really
It's a
interesting
picture
on
of a plugin.
it. Yeah, that's the roadmaps.
Box of candy. Wait. You can have
Yeah, that's
I'll hold on to that.
roadmaps for Confluence. It's a plugin. You can just put it in there. Roadmaps for Confluence. It's a free one from Atlassian. I think it's still from Atlassian Labs though, which means it's not really highly supported. But they are investing a bit more development in this because it's come a long way. Sorry? Oh, okay.
I just got a request for a plugin to be installed.
Sure. Yeah, it's free. And had coffee with the Confluence product manager the other day, and he said it's just got so much great feedback that they've put a team on it now. So yeah, it'll take off. Hopefully integrate into JIRA, etc.
The real roadmap for Enterprise will be coming at 11 o'clock. It's in the form of a person.
Yep.
You can ask him questions, and he might or might not choose to disclose information.
Yeah. They are aware of the Geo Clustering requirement. I don't know if they've got an answer for it yet, but please ask him. Everyone can ask him and make it get higher on their radar. Cool. So pricing on this, it used to be really simple at $24,000 per year per 1,000 users. This has changed recently. Up into 10,000 users, this is what it is. Okay? It's a term license, so unlike Geoserver, which was 50% renewals, it is $24,000 every year. It's all US dollars ex GST. Okay, so just be aware of fluctuations.
Worth noting as well, if any of you are already using an existing instance of Geo Confluence, there is also upgrade discounts with that. So it will end up being less than that.
It's also the same for JIRA, Confluence, and Stash. Same pricing. Now, Stash for 1,000 users on a server is also 24,000. So if you're using Stash 1,000, it's same price to switch to Data Center for the first year. You're doubling your costs in the second year. Just be aware of that. But you do get the redundancy. Did you have a? Okay, sure. So that's at a high level for up to 10,000 users. Bit of a fact sheet again, more for the soft copy. Beyond 10,000 users, wrong button. It becomes $24,000 per 5,000 users. Okay, so yeah, this is a recent change. I only found this out yesterday, and it is capped at $450,000 US. So if you want to just keep going, you can. It won't cost you more than that. As mentioned, no Geo Clustering yet. Does require your own load balancer, your own database, and shared storage. A little bit into the technical aspect of it. It is the same product. So when you download Geoserver, you're downloading JIRA Data Center as well. Just throw a different license key in there, and hey, magic. For those of you familiar with the architecture of JIRA, normally you'd have a home directory where your data sits. It now has two, one being your shared and one being your local. The local one has a local copy of your index. Shared has attachments and that kind of stuff. Database and load balancer has been mentioned. For those of you looking to start evaluating this, first thing I'd say, figure out why. What are your goals? Is it capacity? Is it disaster recovery? High availability? But get an idea of those. To get an instance ready, you're going to need at least JIRA 6.3, Conf 5.6, and Stash 3.5, which pretty much means if you use IE8 as your default browser, don't bother. You've got bigger issues. Fix that first, then look at this. Add-ons now on the marketplace will say that they are data center supported. If there's an add-on that you want on data center that's not supported, let us know. Happy to contact the vendors. We've done this in the past. Get them updated, and okay, away you go. It's normally just really waiting. That vendor's just waiting for someone to ask normally. So. From there, it's pretty standard stuff. Acquire your servers, database, load balancer. Just a note on if you're doing Stash data center, you need a full TCP load balancer, so you can do SSH balancing. Otherwise, the other tools only require HTTP. Then down the bottom here, number 8, your current response time reading from high load times. So you want to be able to prove that, hey, I've done this proof of concept data center, it's really working. This is what we were capping out at before. This is how slow the application was to respond. I can now prove that, hey, I can handle twice that traffic, 3 times that traffic at much better responses.
The beauty of that as well, under the Atlassian licensing paradigm, it's not serviced by, it's not licensed by server. You can keep adding in number of servers, whatever makes sense in terms of what you're willing to budget and provision. Okay, you can throw all that in there. A lot of the other vendors, obviously, per socket, per core, that's the way that they'll license it. Obviously, under Atlassian, it's how many thousand users. So if you get to the point that you don't get quite the response time, there's the option to throw more hardware at it. Might not be the right option, but the option is there.
Quick question.
Yep.
You mentioned that 0.7 MB client, you need to acquire a shared file system.
Yes.
On the previous slide, you mentioned that for data center, you need specific home directories.
Yes.
So how does it work?
Sure. So one of those home directories is on your local storage, and one's going to be on the shared file system. So most commonly NFS, and you would have basically where you'd normally just specify JIRA home equals, you'd have JIRA home and JIRA shared home.
Right.
Okay. One would point to an NFS mount, for example, and the other two are just a local disk mount.
So that shared file system is basically there as part of the replication that's standard.
Yeah. So it's most likely going to be on the SAN, hosted on a SAN or an NAS or whatever storage you've got, and all of the nodes all point to that exact same one. So that would then be up to your SAN to replicate somewhere else. As far as they're concerned, they're just in the same storage. And again, this is where those response times between nodes become important. It's also the response time back to your shared storage.
Just quickly, so John, both of you mentioned that licensing is a server.
Yes.
Are you aware of anyone been playing with automatic scaling in the cloud based on demand?
Nathan, is that something you've had a chance to look at yet?
No, we're planning to look at that soon.
Okay.
So, various ways it's between the hosting in private cloud, and part of that would be auto scaling Atlassian forms. Yeah, it's still very early days.
There'll be a few challenges around the license keys, things like that, getting them in. But they're only challenges; they're not impossible. So yeah, I think that would be fine. The other issue is you're going to have to automate your load balancer to acknowledge that there's a new node.
Yeah.
So for the server, is there any specific distinction whether it's virtual or physical?
No, physical you get better performance, and definitely looking at Atlassian's performance stats from other customers. The best responses are always on physical boxes, but obviously in the enterprise it doesn't fly. You can't have physical servers that you physically have to go over and do stuff to. It just doesn't work. You often don't even know where your servers are. We get that. So that little overhead from the virtualization aspect is fine. Yeah. Anyone else on this one? No. Cool. So beyond the data center offering, there are some new services from Atlassian.
Okay, I said that I'd get up and talk for this slide. So, again, coming back to their concept of turning the corner, as an organisation, they started. Where did they start? They started as a services organisation.
They did, yes.
And they built JIRA to manage their own ticketing. And as the legend goes, they made it available on the web. And one day they got a purchase order for $30,000, and I think Scott turned to Mike and said, "This is the business that we want to be in." It came from a company that they had nothing to do. I think it was like, I don't know, Union Pacific or someplace in the States that just liked their software, and they bought the highest tier of it. So they've grown very organically. They never started with the mindset of we're going to take on the world and build out this tooling and own a lot of hearts and minds. They started down here, which was just try and get some collaboration happening. And they've scaled that and grown it to the point where they're dog fooding it. They're testing their own tools amongst themselves, and with some very large instances throughout the world. I've heard the number 2 million participants on one particular instance. I don't know whether or not that's...
Sorry everyone, Chris has joined us from Atlassian.
Okay.
Are you across the Korean instance of Confluence? Do you know anything about that one? No. Yeah. There is a very large instance in Korea that has things like 500 people trying to edit a page at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? And they all clashing. So, yeah, big.
And obviously dispersed workforces as well. So the point of this slide is really to illustrate where they come from and where they're going, and that mirrors your own sort of behaviour. You might start off as a 10 user license for $10, and as people like it and start needing to have a central place to work and collaborate, it might actually turn into 100, 1,000, and so on. So they're now targeting a lot of their software offering around the global innovation. I think they have 6 sites to Atlassian. They have 6 sites throughout the world, so they're dog fooding it and they're constantly refining it as well.
So now there are these new support offerings from Atlassian. The first one being PremierSupport. Then we've got our technical account managers, and then you've got enterprise partners, also called enterprise experts in the Atlassian world, and that's basically us. So there are now 2 support models. You've got your standard support, which is great for non-technical users. You raise a ticket with Atlassian. Someone will get to it, normally first level help desk will get to it. They can probably answer it. If not, they'll escalate it.
I think great for technical users?
Nope, non-technical users. If you actually know what you're talking about, you don't want to deal with this first level help desk, right? You're like, no, I know it's not that standard issue that I've already looked up. And that's where the PremierSupport is great. The other thing is you've probably got first level help desk in your organisation anyway that's going to be able to answer that same level. So with the PremierSupport, basically you get direct access to experienced developers, basically straight to second level, and get that escalation point.
I'll read this, I guess. With PremierSupport, timely responses and the fact that we have assigned representatives is great. So this is a customer, and you'll get to see what that means in a second.
So with PremierSupport, as mentioned, you get the development escalation priority. So you do get to the top of people's queues internally a bit quicker. Faster SLAs are expected on your tickets as opposed to just the standard support.atlassian.com ones. You get weekend and phone coverage with a little asterisk for for all products. I'll go through that asterisk in a second. You also get warm handoffs and escalation. So the worst thing I've seen on some tickets is been changed to someone at the end of their shift. Oh, I have to repeat that whole thing. You have to go back, read the whole ticket again, and get through. So that warm handoff is a very useful thing and a thorough onboarding process, so they're a little bit familiar with your environment. So in the past, that's a bit of comparison of support models. There was enterprise support, and that is no longer. We now have Premier and a standard, ignoring cloud for now. So in the standard, we're looking at our response times of 1 or 4 hours, and it's really just, it's actually all process supported, that's fine. With the Premier support, we can see there we get 24/7 availability. Response times are quite a bit quicker, all products supported. So the phone support, what I mentioned there before, and again will be in your soft copy, is HipChat, crowd and development tools coverage, and response time is limited to level 1 severity issues only. I don't know what defines level 1 severity, but I imagine everything's gone to whatever, and we've got real downtime.
Just real quick. On that, the grayed out option, which is no longer available, you would, if you acquired that previously, you would probably they would have grandfathered it to a point, and I think that there's a cutover point where you need to move on to a different licensing model. What you have with that is an entitlement to join the JIRA Enterprise Workshop. If you've got 1 instance, then you get 1 free seat to the JIRA Enterprise Workshop. We ran our last one, which we just talked about, at the start of this month. Did I get that right? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
There'll be another one in a couple of months' time. So if you want to know whether or not you are entitled, drop me an email. You'll see my business card in those packs that you've got there in front of you, and I'll be able to let you know. Real quick, just on HipChat, has anyone used HipChat? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Any thoughts? Awesome. I think it's awesome too.
Is anyone actually using it at? Are people using it at work? Yeah.
Yeah, we started rolling out, but we had security issues, so we were using the web-based, and
Okay.
it wasn't working, and then we went to license it, but apparently to include it, so we stopped.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so definitely on the web, really easy to get started. It's actually, there's a free tier, so as long as you don't want video, that's fine. There is now HipChat server. At the moment, I think it maxes out at about 5,000 users. Yeah. They're working on performance, capacity to build that up.
On the client as well, I have a preference for doing the desktop client.
Oh yeah, there's desktops, phone, web, all that kind of stuff. But definitely HipChat server is getting some really good responses. Yep.
The biggest issue I found with HipChat was when I was actually having to use it in 2 different capacities. For
Yes.
clients, you can't log into 2 different.
Correct. I think multi-account support I saw on a beta release of the
so
phone client or something. It's on the marketplace, and you can have a look at their change log for stuff they're looking at bringing in. But yeah, that's a bit of an issue.
Products, is that you've got all in Premier?
Yep.
Is that everything including plugins again?
From Atlassian, yes. It won't. So Atlassian won't support. Maybe a bad example, the Tempo. No, Tempo would support Tempo. Atlassian see Tempo everywhere and are pretty aware of issues that are coming from Tempo and common fixes. Their support team will actually say to you, it looks like a Tempo issue, it's probably this. That's a quick little fix. But at some point they will refer you to Tempo if they cannot quickly resolve the issue. Is there a particular plugin you're thinking of?
Last comment, it's done by a really small.
In JIRA?
Yeah.
Is the source available or?
No.
Okay. So on the marketplace, you'll have free and paid plugins. If it's paid, it will be supported by that vendor. There are a lot of free plugins out there adding, extra functionality to the products. And yeah, there's something to be careful of as you grow. They will get you down a certain path that it's very hard to get out of. Sure. So again, a bit of a fact sheet on PremierSupport. So you get special treatment from Atlassian. You can talk to someone on the phone. It's 3 named contacts per org. So if you had, all your users here, you'd have your 3 main support people named, and they can pick up the phone and call Atlassian. If you had multi-site, so here, US and India. You probably have one in each. It does cover your entire organisation and all the products in that entire organisation. So it does make sense the larger you are. They're not going to come out to you though. No on-site support for this one. They're not there to proactively plan things, and they're not going to solve your integration, customization kind of stuff. It's really just that support. There will be a certain point where it stops. Third party. Won't cover the third party plugins and features, but it will cover their plugins and features. Cool. So for that next level of love, they have their technical account manager, or their TAM. So a TAM is someone who is a dedicated Atlassian resource who's split between a few accounts, and they will spend, I think, on average about 8 hours with you a week, or 8 hours allocated to your account a week. Might be slightly off on times, but about that. And they will actually come to see you. They will do those things. They will proactively plan for scale, growth, upgrades, that kind of stuff with you. They have direct access into Atlassian product teams. They become your dedicated escalation point. Often purchased in conjunction with the PremierSupport. So with PremierSupport, yes, you've got your 3 people who can use this, great level of support. Everyone else can still use standard support. The TAM can escalate anything beyond. So any kind of issues you're getting there, they're your person. Yeah. So as mentioned, single point of contact within Atlassian, $60,000 US a year. They're not going to replace your admin team. So they think, oh, $60,000, that's cheaper than I pay for my admin team, So you are still going to need someone there maintaining these tools. They're not going to do your implementations, but they will help you plan it. And they'll be able to help share with you what they've seen elsewhere. Again, it's not going to cover some of the third-party plugins and the integration points. Kind of stuff. Yeah.
I would definitely not just purchase and install. Engage with an expert. There is a lot of power in using Confluence, and you need expert guidance to use it properly. Confluence customer. So, experts is what the term that Atlassian give to their business partners, which is us. This whole section now is about business partners and kind of what us and effectively companies like ours do. So we've been working with the tool since 2005, I think it was the first implementation. We've seen a lot of implementations around town. We've seen a lot of good ones. We've taken good ideas from those ones. We've seen a lot of bad ones, and we've basically got a little catalogue of anti-patterns as to how you might not want to do things. So what we would do is provide you a bit of guidance around how you might want to lay these things down. The teams do something like that. We do it on a smaller scale, I would say. We don't typically go in dedicated offering entirely around that, although we do things like health checks. But if you're having problems, like say for instance, searching for documents, this is one that comes to mind because one of our customers has this problem. Searching for documents on Confluence, being able to find information, how you would want to structure, how you would want to assign a formal wiki gardener, how you would want to put governance, various different sort of stages before you go live with a particular release, which plugins to curate, what basis to curate them on. All that sort of stuff is stuff that we've had experience with for a good 10 years plus.
Cool. I actually think it's a bit odd because I would have thought JIRA would be a much better example here. Obviously JIRA has a lot more layers of complexity than Confluence does. But I think it really makes a good point that it is always good to ask others. And if not us, ask each other.
Ask each other.
There's communities out there where you can ask each other. You've all got experience doing this. Really valuable resource.
Sorry.
Yep.
We have to check.
Yep.
After the session, just look for somebody to come out.
Yep. Pretty much.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. We can talk afterwards if you're interested.
Cool. So the other offering Atlassian rebranded was Enterprise Partners. So basically experts who have gone through this criteria that John mentioned earlier, GLiNTECH being one. We're also Platinum Partners again. And basically it covers off that, yes, we have proven to deliver solutions in large organisations, that kind of stuff.
Sit this, their questions, their Q&A, their tests, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. following standard guidelines. In fact, last year we did so well. Before we were platinum partners, we got globally fastest growing non-platinum partner in the world. So globally, the world, yes. That's out of 300 odd experts around the world. And because of that, we became platinum partners. So that was really good. That was us over in San Jose last year. And I have to point out Dimitri's selfie with Mike. He always makes me point it out.
Dimitri's the RMD, in case anyone
Yeah.
doesn't know who that is. It's Jeff in the middle, obviously, but
And Andrew.
Andrew
Yep.
is sitting right there, looking drunk.
Yeah, so that was at, you got a drink in your hand, man. So that was at Summit. Last year that was San Jose. This year Summit's in November in San Fran. So anyone who can come along. Great few days.
So there's a sheet in your pack that's dedicated to this, what this looks like. I've already touched on it at a really high level. The last one there is licensing. Bold exclamation mark, I'd underline it and put in flashing, what is it that they used to call that?
Marquee.
No, it was the other one in HTML. Blink.
Blink,
Yeah,
okay.
blink tags, if I could. The point is that we're actually KPI'd, if you will, around the licensing that we do. We often have to compete with the Atlassian website, which is so easy to go in and transact. And you also get the added benefit of being able to claim your points on your credit card and get reimbursed for that. So we've got that functionality as well. If you want to give us your credit card, we've got that, complete with surcharge if you're interested. So we can do that if you want to go down that path. The point is, when it comes to licensing, we can offer a couple things. We can convert to AUD. We can do 30-day terms on some particular types of licensing. If we're talking about sizable bill of materials, we can look at giving you a discount as well. We can do this for your renewals. This is my pitch. We can do this for your renewals, or we could do this for new licensing as well. The worst case scenario for us would be to actively court a sales engagement, POC and the rest of it, and for someone to go, okay, that's awesome, I'll buy it off the website. So please put it through us. Yeah.
I'd say an extra value proposition with licensing as well. For bigger organisations that have multiple different expiry dates, we can also help with consolidating and align that.
Yes.
A lot less admin.
Because you get a lot of people who get a lot of prompts throughout the year, especially if the organisation is moving towards a shared service where it falls under one person's remit. It makes a lot of sense for that one person to be engaged one time in a year as opposed to several times in a year. So good point, AJ.
Licensing model, does it follow Atlassian practice? Because when you get quotes, it's not split between licenses and support, or the maintenance for the next 12 months.
Yeah.
You find a lot of customers giving you feedback on
So the standard support is included.
how it's included for big companies like
for
us.
your-
We need it separated between the rest of our users.
Yes. This is a procurement thing. This is like CapEx versus OpEx. I've had this question with IBM. It's very simple for IBM. It's 20% of whatever the license is goes towards support. I don't know what it is with Atlassian. I don't have a good answer for that one. And what I would speculate, we can turn around and ask Atlassian what it is. But because the year-on-year, like the next year's renewal is half the price of the initial entitlement, I would say if you're buying a brand new license, take that half is OpEx, half is CapEx. I can get something definitive from Atlassian, but this is just going off logic. Like the second year is half the cost, so the second year is pure support.
Just bear in mind that won't apply to Data Center, that's the same cost.
Yeah.
Alright, so I think that's an action point. We'll get you an answer and let you know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm good with that.
Yep. Alright, so beyond those offerings, there are training and events that both ourselves and Atlassian hold. So with the training options, is everyone familiar with Atlassian University? It's kind of, okay, it's just a self-paced learning online. Go to their website, university.atlassian.com, and there's end user training on how to use a mouse and create tickets. It's very basic stuff. There are a couple of courses on there that do get into a little bit more of the complexity, but the majority of it is just targeted at end users. Issue with that is it's not going to be branded like yours. It's, if you do have customized instances, things are going to be different. There might be different wording. but it's a really good place to point people who are asking. Beyond that, there is virtual training. So we run some WebEx courses again for Atlassian, as do other people throughout the world. We do them for Australia, but there are other time zones if your organisation needs to split. And that's just WebEx based with labs and theory and discussions in there. We can also do those same ones on site. So if you've got enough people, just come to you and run the same thing. Often a lot more value in person than over WebEx. And then we have the enterprise training. So that's really that during the enterprise course that, as John mentioned a couple of times, we've run recently. And that's a full day workshop. We normally hold it here, different table layout. But and that's just, again, with a lot of larger organisations. We'll come in and we'll go through, how you establish, how you do things like managing growth, performance tuning, that kind of stuff for these instances. Cover off a bit of the governance practices and what have you as well.
Do you offer training for business, like space owners instead of admin?
Yeah, there's a few courses. Yep, and a couple of slides. I'll just highlight on some of the courses available. Yep, cool. So, starting out, these are some of the JIRA courses. You'll get soft copy, and they are available on Atlassian's website. Different courses run different times, and there's some slight different costing. But so JIRA Essentials, really basic stuff. Is someone's first exposure to JIRA. That's fine. JIRA Agile in practice is quite useful for those of you using JIRA Agile and Scrum or Kanban methodologies. Some reporting and dashboards, JIRA Confluence integration. These ones are starting to get a little bit more in depth. A couple of JIRA admin courses there. Project config and user management schemes. Part 2 is getting a bit more serious. They're quite in depth. They're not really going to be for most people. There's one specifically on JIRA workflows, and your practical JIRA Confluence sysadmin as well, and the workshop down the bottom. On Confluence side, it's getting started with Confluence. Again, very basic. This is how you edit a page. This is what a page is, what a space is. But then you're getting more from Confluence. So that's going to start covering off a lot of your macros and that kind of stuff where you can get a bit more power. And that's probably where I'd start to push your space owners down. That getting more from Confluence style thing. Alternatively, if there's and the bit of the description of these courses is available online. But if it doesn't quite suit you and you want to do something customized, you say, oh, that kind of looks good. Can we modify it? Yes, we can modify it. So it's just a case of going through. We'll propose some modifications. Chat to Atlassian, yep, their course, still call that their course, and away we go. Alternatively, if you just want fully customized training, we also offer that. The other one, for those of you in the development space, the Agile development using Atlassian developer tools, covers off Stash, Bamboo, Confluence, JIRA, JIRA Agile. Yeah, it's a good little crash course on those tools and their integration points. So that workshop, I'll skip over this because we've already kind of done it, but it does have that training credit that John mentioned. If you are interested in finding out if you are eligible, just drop us an email and we'll find that out for you. Alternatively, it's $1,000 per person, US dollars ex GST. Or you can do it as a full company. I think it's 10 grand roughly. Honestly though, it's better value on that one doing it in the public schedule, not specific to your organisation, because you actually get to learn from a lot of the other attendees. But the other ones, not so much. Having private is fine. This one, the public one's probably better value. Some just generic pricing for everything. Again, more for the soft copies when you're ready. Cool. So, a few events that Atlassian are holding. So, Atlas Camp. Has anyone heard of Atlas Camp? So Atlas Camp is Atlassian's developer conference. That's over in Prague in early June, and it's a few days over there where you get to sit down and write code and do stuff like that. Very technical. If it's your space, awesome. Maybe if you live closer to Prague, you can justify it. It's a bit of an effort to get there. Summit though, Summit's great. It's Atlassian's annual conference, as mentioned before, San Fran, 5th of November. It's the better part of a week, just all things Atlassian. Lots of talks from customers from Atlassian. A lot of new feature releases will get announced there. They always do. Yeah, it's great. Has anyone been to a summit before? No, not you. Yeah. Yeah, again, it's hard being in Australia. It's a long way, right? It's a 14-hour flight, and it's basically riding off a week. If you can find a way to justify it, really good fun. Then we've got the Atlassian user group. So these normally run every quarter, but the old leader of the Atlassian user groups kind of skipped town. Stuart used to run the Atlassian user groups, and he's now doing his masters and doesn't have the time for it anymore. We've missed the last one, but I believe there's now a new leader online, and they'll be able to start that up again. They normally do run every quarter. I think the last one was February, so should be one coming up soon. They're just down at the Atlassian offices. It's normally 100 plus people that rock up to those. A lot of Atlassian product managers will come along and developers. So if you want to get a better understanding of what's going on internally at Atlassian, or suggest some features over a beer or two, it's a great place to do that. Free beer, free pizza, free chicken. What more could you want? All right.
Am I reading this?
Yeah, you can do this one. Yeah.
Okay, so in short, you've heard the pitch. I'm going to reiterate very briefly while I'm trying to capture the audience. Okay, so if you're considering the data center as an evaluation, talk to us, please. We can give you the keys. Data center had some teething problems with an actual real-life implementation. We were there to be able to facilitate the resolution of those problems. So it's probably worth giving us a call about that one there. If you're looking at doing a bit of a consolidation, trying to pull together various different disparate instances into one, shared services, have a chat with us about that. We could write up, do the metrics around doing a business case for something like this, not just from the annual subscription fees, but what it would potentially save as well. So talk to us about that. Training credits I've already discussed. Talk to us about that. Not sure how to implement governance for scale. And support with presentation to team members, stakeholders and executives. I got it was a while ago, but one of our contacts is based out of Canberra actually, not here today, works for a large government department. It was basically saying, look, we're being courted all the time by HP and IBM Rational guys, and my management doesn't really take the Atlassian stuff seriously, even though I like to use the tools and my team uses the tools, without having that representation, someone to actually present, demo, proof the concept. It doesn't actually get the headspace from senior IT stakeholders. So what we can do is we can do that for you. If you're interested, if you want to go down that path, have a chat with us, we can do that for you. If you need to have a chat with people from Atlassian as well, generally the policies, they don't do that, but on occasion we've been able to swing it. We've been able to swing presentations, we've been able to swing face-to-face meetings. Talk to us, we're an enabler in that space. Reach out to experts, or my business card is in the pack. You can reach out to me. We can go from there. This is a new offering that we're coming out with Access Agile. Access. Has anyone used Access Agile for Scrum training? No. Okay. Yeah, great. I've been on their training course, and they do the CSM, CSPO. And one thing that Atlassian doesn't have is a Scrum merging with JIRA Agile course. They've got kind of the tooling aspects to it, that you can do that online course, but it's not the two worlds together. And that's something that we're co-developing with Access Agile. We've pretty much got the pieces in place. We want to get this officially recognised by Atlassian, which is a process in and of it itself. So we're looking to actually launch this in Q2. And next slide.
Yep.
And now over to you, if you have any further questions.
So I know there was a few points raised. So one that was on early was the ability to control content in Confluence. you want to just elaborate on that a little bit and see?
Yeah, so part of like enabling our Confluence will be adopted by more users. We just have to be careful to be able to put some controls and monitor what people put in there.
Yep.
Obviously, we are in the financial industry,
Yep.
you know, and certain information classification we need to monitor because Confluence doesn't necessarily mean free for all.
Yeah, so by its nature, it is an enabler, right? You can just put whatever you want in there.
That's right.
So I presume that we're talking about passwords, right? That's an obvious one.
Exactly.
Has anyone else come across this? Do you have automated solutions for it, or is it a...
We have the same question as well. So
Yeah.
a whole group of users, like one group, they 251 pages in a week, and we were just like, what?
Yeah,
There's no governance, so we need to bring them in to say,
sure.
people belong here or not, and also privacy as well on some things to sign up.
Yeah. So depending how heavy-handed you want to be on this, you can put a workflow around every page. There's Kamala Workflows, it's a third-party plugin on the marketplace that I know some of you are using. And it allows every page to go through a publishing process. It can get signed off before it's visible by end users. That's going to be horrible at scale. You know, you don't want to have to approve every time someone edits a page. So I would probably put down some kind of education around this kind of thing. So any onboarding, make sure people are aware of these, you know, who can see what they're putting in there. But a little bit of a plug, we do have a plugin on the marketplace, which is a terms and conditions plugin. You have to agree to it before you log in the first time. I'm not necessarily saying go down that path, because it's not going to stop it, right? It just gives you grounds to do something about it when they
Well,
fail.
I mean, like as a platform owner, we just need to show that we are putting good enough monitoring control.
Yep.
So, and you know, whatever the user put in there, it is at the end of the day, it's the user responsibility.
Yeah.
You can't understand everything we put in there.
Absolutely.
So we need to have enough control in there. Like for example, maybe tagging or labeling or whatever it is that you can do that
Yep.
might help for us to classify whatever.
So definitely labeling you could use. Labeling is very loose though. Sorry, Andrew, can you just help up the back there with the tab? So the label, there's very little control around labeling. Anyone can just create labels. There is a plugin to, I think it's called Label Cage or something. Have you guys used it?
Yeah.
Is it any good?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, and that lets you basically define a set of labels
Yeah.
globally and per space.
Yes.
Yeah. That you could use. I know in your scenario, you don't really like plugins in your big instances, right? Obviously, you're going to get performance hits with plugins because there's extra stuff going on. So at a scale, it may become an issue, but for, you know, it's something easy to try and test out. Other than that, if it's common scenarios that keep happening, you know, you get your activity feed and stuff, right? You could just be parsing that slowly in the background, looking for anyone who mentions the word password in a page.
We do that as well.
Yeah?
Yeah. Any password mentioning, we have a script that we run very often just for audit purpose.
Yep.
So we catch any password or any keyword,
Okay.
generates a report, says if the page is protected, it's not protected, monitors,
Okay, is that just something you've developed internally?
Yeah.
And how does that handle the history of a page? So obviously I can go through and delete the password, but I can just go look at the history.
It doesn't really handle the history.
Okay, but
we handle what we
yeah.
find, right? And we point it out to the owner. But
Yep.
if you restrict the page, you restrict the history as well, right? So
Yeah, yes,
so that's
absolutely.
what we ask. So you either remove it
Yep.
or you restrict it.
Okay, and is that just is that an inbuilt plugin you've written, or is it a
It's
just a
REST
REST API?
Yeah,
Okay.
REST all we use.
All right, so that's going to help with scale. It's not going to have too much overhead. You can limit your calls. You know, of course, it will have to be running as fast as you're writing data. Otherwise, it will get too far behind or whatever. But yeah, it's a definitely good alternative. Anyone else have suggestions around that kind of concept? Have you had those same issues?
We manage it from a business perspective. So we run Confluence for multiple teams at DTC, and each space is a representation of the team.
Yep.
So the space owner is ultimately responsible for the content, but in that space, then they manage their responsibilities. And there's a clear security policy in our organisation that we're not supposed to publicise sensitive information, passwords, etc.
Yep.
So it's really comes down to common sense. And if there's a breach of that policy, then ultimately it comes down to the accountability of the space owner.
Yep.
So
I think
that's the
yeah.
easiest way to handle it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Data classification is a big one. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest problems we faced initially was, and I know password comes up for basically everyone that puts in a Confluence instance.
Yep.
And when we initially put it in, we didn't have an enterprise password management or any sort of password management software. And so I think if you don't have something similar, then before you're releasing Confluence too widely, you need to have clear policies. And potentially look at them in tandem, because by the nature of a wiki, if someone can put information there and they don't have a proper place, then it's going to end up in there. At least you can now delete historical pages.
Yep.
Which you couldn't before.
Yep, sure. So I think there's a couple of good points here. So definitely an automated script to help check this stuff is great and get a bit of reporting around it. Having the business owner actually own and be responsible for that is great. One thing I've noticed is common sense doesn't scale. Right? 25 people, I can go to them and say, what are you doing? That's ridiculous. 50,000, you've got no idea who the majority of your business are. So I'd love to be able to say just use your common sense on this, but I know in practice it doesn't really work. I think it'll come down to the culture of your organisation, and while some people realise it's common sense to not put passwords, obviously, or password. So you can, of course, restrict your spaces in your pages, but if someone can't find it, let's create a new one and put it there, right?
Just one other note, it gets a bit more interesting, because we tried doing that so-called authoritative approach.
Yep.
So there were a lot of restrictions, and people started getting a bit creative, and they created pages under their own profile, their own personal space, and you can't do squat about it. So it becomes really difficult for JIRA needs to go through and for individual blog pages and whatnot.
Absolutely. Out of interest, who here has personal spaces enabled on Confluence? Yeah. Do they cause you issues? No? Good. Okay. So something definitely we've seen in the past where, you've got 50 spaces in your Confluence instance, it's not that many, I've seen 1,000 in Confluence instance. Oh, but then we've got 5,000 personal spaces, and suddenly the scale of the application changes just because there's so much data in there that most people can't see. It's a great place to leave stuff, but yeah, it can become interesting. And definitely on a lot of instances, I just see personal spaces disabled now. Tag. No, can't remember where I was going with that. That's all right. So a couple of the other questions. Sorry, does that give a bit of guidance on where you could go with? Yeah.
So the other question I want to ask is the Confluence storage and the database. Does it support encrypted data in it? Like, can you encrypt the database?
So I've come across this before. Problem with encrypting data is you're going to need to put a password in when you start the application to decrypt it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking more about, say, I don't know much about Confluence,
yep.
but I believe Microsoft SQL Server will support transparent data encryption at the database level. Is that something that has been tested with?
No idea. Sorry. Yeah. I could lie and say, but no. I honestly don't know. I would assume that it would still give the application just its expected data format, just over JDBC. Probably have TLS over that. Something like that. But yeah, I don't know. As far as something that people have asked in the past are PCI compliance. So having your entire file system and the application, have this kind of wraps around it. The problem is you've got no auto recovery. So every time you start that application, 2 people normally have to go and type half of a password each before it starts. It's painful. Right? I understand that it's a requirement. I don't know any other way to get around that without storing the password somewhere. It's just, but yes, it's all possible.
Yeah. From my perspective, it could help me decide what kind of content we should put.
Sure. Yeah. The other thing is I don't know what kind of performance overheads that would have. So it could potentially have quite a big hit, just depending on where that's happening. Cool. So something else we had here was just around the plugins. So Atlassian support for plugins and the paid versus free ones. Is that a big issue that people have? Is unsupported plugins? Do people have governance kind of things around? Hey, you want a new plugin? It has to go through all these checks and. No, you just. Yes, yes, yeah. So definitely something that's worth looking at setting up. Don't just allow any old plugin to go in. Do a bit of analysis and performance testing on it in a test instance. Make sure you've covered off the performance impacts it's going to have, data corruption. Check the kind of plugin as well. So in the past there have been some in Confluence that actually change the storage format of your data. If you remove that plugin ever, there's no migration path out. It's not just wrapping the standard Confluence stuff. Used to be a big issue with the content formatting macros. That you couldn't really get away from it. You couldn't uninstall that plugin. You just had to keep going down that path. So yeah, there are those ones to be aware of. Majority though, on the marketplace, if you have a look, there's Atlassian verified vendors who go through a whole stack of checks and balances with their add-ons. There's supported for a start. There's Data Center label as well. And just look at the reviews from the ratings and the reviews. If it's 4-star rating, it's only out of 4. If it's 4-star rating, it's just the developer rating their own plugin. That's what we do too. But if there's a few there, you get a good idea of, are people actually using this? How many active installs does it have? And what are the comments that people have left? And what has the vendor said in response? One that will catch you is, here's a great plugin, excellent, we're using it, we need to upgrade our application. The vendor hasn't upgraded the plugin. Okay. Sure, you can contact the vendor, they'll get around to updating it. How long does that take? Is this affecting your deadlines because of something out of your control? So, yep. Andrew?
Has there been any more rumours around the Confluence live editing?
Chris, are you across that at all?
So Otto, which is the Atlassian Enterprise PM, may attend, and also Daniel Stefano, which is the APAC Expert Manager, so he may also attend shortly.
So we'll hassle those guys when it comes. Last I heard, yes, it was coming. When? Who knows? Maybe next year, maybe the year after. Yeah, I think they've got a lot of challenges getting there. They're well aware that it's high on people's list though. So something that was demoed at Summit last year. Are you familiar with Google Docs? Yep. So the fact that you can have 3 or 4 people editing one at the same time, that kind of concept within Confluence. So to be able to have multiple editors, all in there, real-time live editing. There's a really good video. We might send that out afterwards as well if someone can remind me to do that. Just a good example. So we've now got Otto who's joined us, Principal Product Manager for JIRA Enterprise. I guess a couple of things. So if you've got particular questions, so maybe there's one. Are you across the collaborative editing in Confluence, live editing in Confluence with multiple users?
No,
that's all right.
Detail, probably wouldn't be a good thing to talk about.
Sure thing. Geo Clustering for Data Center.
Okay. Common question we get. When we implement a data center, the problems we're trying to solve is mainly around high availability and performance. The way that we designed it doesn't help that it's not Geo Clustering, because that's currently what people think of. Interested to hear what people think the problem is that they're trying to address with Geo Clustering. Why do you want to do Geo Clustering?
My case is latency that I have from sites in Sydney and sites in London. So my server is sits here on Sydney and if I have just taking it from the late, it's purely latency.
So it's mainly the performance of a remote cohort of users. Yeah. So the current data center architecture won't lend itself to addressing that. Matter of fact, it will be just as bad, if not worse, probably worse. Right, sort of knows that application whether we designed it. There are a couple of different projects that are going on at early stages to help address the difference in performance between various sites. We as a company have the same problem. So we currently serve out of West Coast and East Coast US for all of our cloud or on-demand products. And they're being used all over the world, and we here serve out of that. So one of the things that we did was to use Amazon Edge nodes for the CDNs and serve static content out of those nodes. And that's reduced the amount of trips that it needs to make to the West Coast or East Coast, and has improved things. Particularly the aspects of endpoint aspects game in non-North America locations. So we have done some initial spiking on using a similar approach for enterprise. The challenge that we found when we said CDNs might be a way to do it, is usually the same problem that you find for why there's a performance from the first place, and usually it's that the pipes going from A to B aren't great. They're suffering because of that. And most of the admins we deal with don't have budget or any kind of control of those pipes. And if the video conference system is eating up all of that, it's not a big priority. So for similar reasons, CDNs are not one of those where usually people don't have budget to set up CDNs. So what we tested instead was to say, can we run the same thing essentially from a proxy server, which most people usually got access to in most remote locations. And we're early days with that testing, but we are seeing that there's some games available for that. The other thing I'd say is that recently we did a survey, probably share more results from the survey than just finished something last week. And that said that the reasons for people having different locations, performance was actually the lowest ranked thing in terms of the challenge that they perceived with having with doing consolidation. It was a real driving factor that people would consolidate. There was things like with certain lines of business that want to have their own JIRA, they want to be able to run themselves at a much better security was one that we came up with that. So while we are looking at that data, we're saying now, well, is that really the problem that we're trying to solve? Most of us are solving that. We're still trying to figure out what's the best approach for that. The aim is to address the problem that you talked about, which is the disparity in performance between here and
Is there any improvements on the code itself for the user things? The user feedback to the server? Is there any things happening now that you guys doing the code itself?
Yep, there is a whole bunch of stuff we're doing around the various caches that we built, both client side and server side. Again, that's something that's driven by our work on cloud. People who are in a cloud product experience code cache very frequently. It happens a number of different times. You do the restart after maintenance. Everything's really cold, it can take a long time. The validation of caches on the client side is also part of that. So there's a lot of work, and there's 2 large teams, and usually 4 large teams that we focus on that. We expect that will also have carryover benefits on the enterprise. So that will definitely help in reducing the amount of stuff that's going to go over that point.
So you mentioned content delivery networks. The reason I thought this is because even several years ago I was working with Sharif to basically hack away the core of Confluence to actually put in a static CDN hostname. Is that something that you're looking to bring to the non-data center products? Basically, just the option in the front end to go serve static files from a different hostname or several.
So for JIRA, we've done a spike on exactly that.
Yeah.
By proxy. For Confluence, I know they haven't done that work yet. But both JIRA and Confluence have put CDNs in place for the cloud product. So whatever we do in JIRA, in theory, is something we want to be extendable.
Other product service now, is there an integration? I saw somewhere there was a demo of service now. Maybe just think about it.
Good question. I don't know. It's good for us to be a separate product altogether.
So with ServiceNow or Service?
ServiceNow
Yeah. There are bespoke integration pieces for that. To pass the data both ways. Likewise, HP, QC, TFS, all that kind of stuff. There are all integration basically brokers for each of those applications. They're not really. I wouldn't advise doing that as a plugin in the application just for scale reasons, but actually hosted externally. So, but I'm happy to send you over some information on that as well. Cool. There are other integration pieces that people are looking for with JIRA specifically, since I don't see.
SharePoint for instance?
No one uses SharePoint, don't you? So is that something people would use, JIRA integration to SharePoint, or is it more a Confluence thing for you guys?
More migration.
Yeah, sure.
We use SharePoint more.
Yeah, and is it the kind of thing that you want to integrate, or is it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. JIRA or Confluence or both? Both. Okay. And what kind of things are in SharePoint that would go to JIRA and vice versa?
It's the other way.
So JIRA to SharePoint?
Yeah, so at the moment we're looking at different that's close on SharePoint. Can't talk too much about it, but the idea is really about bringing the information together from these sources and deliver that to the single sheet.
So if you had similar macros to what you can do in Confluence to bring JIRA data in to SharePoint, that would help you in that scenario. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, in the past, the SharePoint integration from Atlassian has only been Confluence, and especially now that they're going to the SharePoint Cloud offering as well, it becomes a much more challenging piece there. There have been SharePoint integration pieces with JIRA from third-party vendors as well. I haven't heard of a huge adoption of them, and generally that means Atlassian themselves probably, I won't speak out of turn here, probably wouldn't do that themselves, but they may well engage also encourage an expert to look at filling in that void for them.
The other one, you said the roadmap plugin.
Yeah. I was talking to Sharif and he was saying the roadmaps for Confluence, that macro. Have you across that at all? Yeah. That's a Confluence thing. There's also JIRA Portfolio, which might be more your thing if you're looking at JIRA side of stuff. So JIRA Portfolio is another add-on from Atlassian, and that allows you to start planning future large pieces of work. So where JIRA Agile starts to talk in epics and user stories, Portfolio would talk in themes and initiatives. So you can say, here for the next 3 years, this is kind of my plan. If I throw more people at it, can I deliver quicker? Obviously that doesn't always work as well as you'd like. Maybe throwing more people in is just going to make it longer. We can do a little bit of a show and tell on that if you want. Might also just, again, it's a really good little video from Atlassian when it was launched. It's a 12-minute video or something. It just really goes over it in a lot of depth. Those devs are actually just down here in Sydney as well, so definitely when there are user groups back on, that great time to come and talk to them about it. They do a much better demo than I do in Portfolio, to be honest. But yeah, it's a really useful product just for that planning.
Usually, that's something where you want to interact with what you're doing. From a flow perspective, we expect that most people do that. You're talking more about reporting and saying, this is the current status of everything you can see and visualize.
Status report out of Confluence.
What about integrating JIRA with JIRA behind like a secure firewall type thing?
Cool. So some kind of talking federation, so multiple JIRA instances being able to talk to each other, or so I mean definitely you can link your JIRA instances just via app links, same way you integrate Confluence and JIRA. You can then cross-link issues. This is related to this one over here. There was a JIRA to JIRA issue copy plugin, still exists, great. So that allows you to copy a JIRA issue from one instance to another. What you can't do is federated search. So there's no concept of federated search. So you used to be a desktop client that you could basically do local search on JIRA, and you could have more than one server on there. I think it was ALM Works, something, I don't know. But that kind of replicated that federated search model. But you're not going to be able to do JQL to say, these projects if it's on another server at the moment.
Basically, we've got project management instance,
Yep.
and they've got a development instance.
Yep.
And we want to create, the project managers want to create tickets for the developers, obviously,
Yep.
but completely separate
Yep.
instances, basically.
And want to be able to do it from their own instance.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. That would be an interesting point to have project pointers. So, hey, here's a list of projects. I want to create an issue in this, and it just goes off to a different one. Haven't seen Federate any more work on Federation. Do you want to get Bitwise?
Basically, it's a separate company.
Okay, so it's like an outsourced model kind of?
Yeah, all sorted.
And is it property security driving that specifically, or?
Among other things, yes.
So from our point of view, it can be using it and good for more than one instance of JIRA. Also, we did this to the extent of people to try to figure out that they're like small confluences. We haven't got any exclusivity on the roadmap right now to essentially what the request would be
the past I've seen really hacky integration pieces like that, where you would actually, normally with the JIRA Enterprise Message Handler, is anyone familiar with that? Really complex email handling. So in JIRA, by default, you can receive emails and create tickets and send out emails, that kind of stuff. So JMH, JIRA Enterprise Message Handler, lets you do a whole stack more processing around those emails. So you can start doing regex parsing, progress it through the workflow from subject headers, that kind of stuff. I've seen companies that have all their onshore work here. At a certain point in the workflow, it sends out a notification to someone else's JIRA instance. They absorb that information. They go and do their thing when it comes back. Likewise, it comes back here. Horrible, horrible. So hard to maintain, but it works, right? So there are always ways to get past these kind of issues. It's just be very cautious about maintenance. So definitely between. Are you guys using Semver for your semantic versioning? Yeah. So basically means any major version upgrade is going to break APIs. All this stuff will break and you'll have to redo it. Minor versions shouldn't break those APIs, but
Is there a plugin to help you to connect one to the other? There's a plugin called Connect All, and you can link instances and sync what you want to sync.
Yeah, I haven't used that, so that's one to look at. Connect All?
Yeah, Connect All.
Okay.
It's in a standalone product, so I have to install a server.
Sure, yeah. And that sounds similar to the kind of ServiceNow things, where it's no longer a plugin for the application, it's a service running on a box somewhere, and it just talks to both applications and tries to fix clashes. What happens when both sides get it at the same time? You have fun stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So were there more questions specifically for Otto, or is Jira?
Okay, sorry. My focus more Confluence.
On Confluence, there is external search providers you can use. So if the internal stuff isn't working for you, what's it called? Sparks Enterprise Search. Yeah. And that is basically, or you can use, I know people have hooked up Google Minis and stuff to it. So you can actually hook it into an external search appliances. Frankly, if you got just garbage in Confluence, though, it's still going to muddy the waters. So it's hard. And I think the same kind of tools will work with JIRA, although you're not going to get JQL and stuff, which is really the strength there. So anyone familiar with CQL yet? So Confluence Query Language? No? So Confluence 5.8, which should be out pretty soon. Pretty soon anyway. It's in a beta release if you want to download it from Atlassian's site. It's starting to introduce Confluence Query Language, so you can start to bring contenting a little smarter. Very early days with what it's doing so far, but they're looking for feedback on that. And it may also help with some of this kind of stuff where you can start to develop your advanced queries.
Just real quick, so Otto, if there's anything that you can provide us with regard to a roadmap, that'd be great. If you have any questions of the audience as well, take an unofficial poll or something like this. Over to you.
Exactly what I was going to ask. The very first question is, who's currently on version 6.4? How's your experience with the performance of 6.4? Improvement over 6.3? We're seeing the uptake rate of 6.4 a little bit faster than we have with previous versions. A very large piece of work and a dedicated team that was specifically working on performance because we know that's an issue there, like specifically scalable performance. So our internal testing, this is how long the piece is bringing, depends on how you use JIRA and what your balance shape looks like, etc. So we can give you rough guidance. The number that we got to was 30 to 0% improvement from 6.3 to 6.4. We haven't seen it. There's an excellent JIRA scaling guide. JIRA scaling guide on confluence.com. And you'll be able to see the improvement we've made on the next, as well as being able to see what small, but as you build that up, that complexity is extremely difficult to rein in. From an organizational point of view, it's difficult to rein in. People love that functionality and that capability and the way they can work in ways that they want to. So you take that away from people, it's very difficult. So thinking about the choices that that enables. So that was a big investment from us to improve 6 forward reports, so if you haven't checked it out, see if you're on red side, so you go to that. Understand that it's not easy to figure out great processes to make for everyone. Really, that's a big issue there. The other thing I wanted to ask is who's currently on Java 8? Do it and you to do it.
A point on that. Your startup scripts still reference permgen space, which no longer exists in Java 8.
Okay.
Yeah, throws warnings. Yeah.
Have you logged a ticket for it yet?
Just talk to yeah, that's my ticket.
7.0 will only support Java 8. So we still have Java 7 support right now. So we want to make that migration. We've seen a lot of performance improvements also coming from Java 8. Really big differences, re-indexing time better, availability is better. So really consider doing that on my Java project pretty soon as well. If you ever have a support ticket, that's probably one of the first things you're going to do now. We've only recently discovered that that makes such a big difference. So we haven't really very actively communicated that or as actively as we would like to communicate that. So we've got a few more channels that we can use that as a channel. In terms of roadmap and things that are coming up, one of the pain points we've got in one of the fastest growing Jack issues and SAP issues, so those support as well as suggestions and products that we want in Europe, is the ability to handle NATO data for importing or exporting employee projects. In other words, if you have 2 instances and you want to take an Agile project from one versus the other, today you can't. Pretty much so. So we're going to extend our project import capabilities to allow you to grab all that Agile data and bring that across to other instances. Two main use cases for that are if you have multiple instances, one of those has to be in the cloud, you want to migrate out of the cloud onto the server. That's probably the biggest use case that we see in the support here at the moment. The other is for enterprises that have multiple instances and they want to path to consolidation and path to the data center as well. That's a big deal for us. So it comes to dates and findings on things, we're an agile company, exchange, all the guidelines, etc. So I take all this as guides across the board.
Interesting question on sort of copying data between instances. Not exactly what I'm thinking of, but highlighting in my mind. What's the plan for the ease of creating essentially templated projects in JIRA? I know currently it's possible if you go and write a code to define a template, which is extremely difficult. I still haven't managed to get my head around it.
Yep.
But something to just go, here's how I want a project to be set up, create a template, and from now on, any new one has all these options to allow my users to create. So I can say, you don't have to come to me to create a project. I've defined this, you're allowed to create it your own arms. Something like that to take off the administration time and to make it easy to create them.
There is a plugin by GliNTECH
Yep.
that you might want to have a look at that will actually achieve some, if not more of that. For us to do things around this, there is some work that we're doing on this, but GliNTECH. W-I-T.
Okay.
Yeah, I can send it out. It's like Project Creator or something.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Project Creator.
They do a whole stack of just little plugins. Very, very good though. Highly recommend them.
So I guess the challenge around that one is how formulaic you want it to be. Because the more formulaic it is, the more templates you have, and the more your diversity, complexity, template grows. And the other part is how much do you want to reuse what initiatives, etc. that are in the background rather than proliferation of, using that part for performance. Yeah. So there's a lot of complexity with doing that. We will be actively touching those areas at the moment with the focus of improving the way that we delineate between software Kanban, software Scrum, and business use. At least in those areas, there will be some templates that are available during the
There is a plugin for that. I think it's called like Better Export for Excel or something. Better Excel for JIRA, something along those lines.
I think Excel's fine, but when you want to get a Word or something,
Okay.
and PDF as well.
So yeah, PDF's a bit of fun. Word, there's one called Intelligent Reports, which allows you to give it a Word template file with some placeholder text, run it over JIRA, and it will just find and replace that. Intelligent Reports. Yeah. Stuart, Intelligent Reports.
Sorry, intelligent reports.
Write it down. Yep.
Have I just had like a massive extra workload?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite a good little plugin, and it will help just for basically give it a Word template file, find, replace the text, do some graphs, that kind of stuff. It's not free; it's paid and supported. So yeah, very few are free and supported. So, but it'll help. There is the PDF one as well. It's a bit more of a learning curve to develop the templates for that, but it's available. You could also, if you can get it to Word, you can just then export it to PDF if you really want to. I very early release of that, I had performance issues at scale. I believe they've done a lot of work around that now, though, so it seems to work a lot better.
Do you have any guides for like if we're going to roll that to AWS? Like what sort of tier should we be looking at?
M3 large.
M3 large. How many users?
Up to 100, 200. Yeah. Do you guys have any? You know.
We're currently working on improving the guidance that we get for AWS and support that we do AWS.
Yeah. In the past, M3 large has been fine, more than enough for small to medium instances. If you want to get to, you know, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of users, no, keep going, and just, you know, whichever RDS you want. So MySQL, Postgres, they both work fine. I haven't hooked it up to any of the other cloud, like all the fanciness that I can put around the CDNs and that kind of stuff. So
what's your preferred database?
depends on the customer.
Yeah.
Internally, I use Postgres.
Yeah.
Some customers I use MySQL quite happily. End of the day, I want it to be a database that the customer is already using and that they can support. Most of the time at a large organisation, I'm going to have absolutely no access to that database. There's going to be DBAs. Let them do what they do. So if you're an Oracle organisation, use Oracle. You know, if you're a DB2 organisation, don't use DB2. Find something else. It's no longer supported. I mean, no, DB2 is really good because we're IBM partners as well. But no, Atlassian do not support DB2. But yeah, I think that's more important. And likewise, the Windows versus Linux thing. To host the application on, I'm always going to say Linux. If you're a Windows shop and all your admins are Windows, just do it on Windows. It's going to save you so much time and cost in the long run for doing that kind of stuff. Anything else? Out of interest as well, who here is still using IE8 as part of their corporate operating environment? That was a quick one. Yeah, so in the past I've seen that as a big issue with the upgrade. So you're stuck on 6.2, I think. No, prior to 6.2, 6.1. Yeah. So, and I'm sure internally there's a whole stack of discussion about this, but yeah, always try and push people to get updated browsers, and most commonly you end up seeing a second browser anyway, just because it's too hard to upgrade native ones. Cool. Were there other questions and discussion points people had?
I'm looking at Mike putting two instances together. They're quite separate, quite on their own different ways. A huge number of custom fields, permission schemes, everything custom that you could probably think of in these two instances. I'm curious to know if there'd be any kind of management or reporting features within JIRA that would say, look, yeah, you've got too many custom fields, here are the ones which are actually being used. You've got this amount of permission schemes, this is where they're being used. And just to be able to picture that in order to get it under control.
Sure. So natively in JIRA, you can see which ones are inactive, so of schemes. So you can see, hey, this workflow scheme is inactive, you know, delete it. If it's not being used, it's not being used. You know, it might be there, it might be someone's work in progress. Sure, understand who's using this. But in general, I would start going through which permission schemes are not being used, delete them. Which workflow schemes aren't, issue type screen schemes, even issue types. So So with your issue types, as long as if you just try and delete an issue type, it will actually tell you how many active issues are using, or how many issues are using it. If it's 1 or 2, move them to something else and delete it. So I've just done this for an insurance company, which was going in there for 2 days and just cleaning up. And it was really, here's all the unused schemes. Great, now that I've deleted the schemes, all these screens actually aren't allocated to anything. Gone. Sure, it took a backup beforehand just in case, but we're able to reduce a whole stack of this clutter in the admin just by that systematic process. Custom fields are harder. Now you'll need to make sure you have permission to see all projects, to browse all projects, and also listed in any issue type security scheme, okay, to be able to view all issues as a default. And then it's a case of JQL to say custom field is not empty. So if you just do, ABN is not empty, you'll see any issue that is using the ABN field. There's 2, and they're both labeled test. Forget it, delete it. But then you can also see that yes, this one is being used a lot. If it was last used last week or yesterday or now, and it's like, no, that's fine. And that is really just a case of going through, searching, recording the results. You can do it the API if you want to get actually down and dirty with the dev tools. But otherwise, yeah, just via the UI you can do it like that. But do you have more on that?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I think the other thing to look at obviously is as you're doing migration, be sure you know what projects you're working across, what's working across, what's working behind it. People when you're doing that process,
Anyone else have some questions or discussion points they want to?
We are currently talking about where we should have other locations. Europe is the first candidate because that's the largest portion for this time around outside of the US. I think in Australia probably the one number of volumes that we've got. So Asia, the rough idea, 10% overall business count is very much. And a lot of that's what
I presume though once you had established the method to move cloud to a second hosting location, the third and fourth will be much easier.